Sure.
Mark Fine, Executive Director of Marketing, New York Mets. You are on the Sports Dream Job show, sir, so thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks so much for having me today.
How's that? I mean, I'm not very fancy with this thing, so you're calling from your car right now. I'm sitting on my couch I'm actually sitting on my couch at my parents' house right now doing this.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a nice little visit with them, and we're sliding this in between our other things that we do in our lives. It's not bad.
Absolutely. We all started on our parents' couch. So
Yeah. Well. Somehow I'm ending up here. I don't know what happened. All right. So it is a Sports Dream Job show. So the guests I have, like yourself, in this industry, there's so many kids out there coming out of college. In another month or two, from the 640 schools that have sports management, and they all want jobs and careers in this industry. So I just want to hear your story, and we could start it off at, right from college. You went to American?
Yeah, sure. I went to American University in Washington, D.C. I was a broadcast journalism major. About halfway through my time there, it's funny, I was the team manager of the basketball team, so we got to finish my major actually earlier because I could sign up for classes first. So I finished the broadcast journalism major really after my junior year, and that's when I decided, rather than go that route, I really wanted to look at, rather than covering the team, being on the team and working for a team. And I liked the publicity angle that the field of public relations kind of offered. So I went that route, and I was very fortunate that my entire senior year, I got an internship with the Baltimore Orioles in their PR department. And I'm from Baltimore originally, so it was the team I grew up watching. I was, working out of the warehouse in Baltimore, which was incredible. It was a dream come true, really. And I was very lucky to have a very good boss there by the name of Bill Stetka, who is still at the Orioles now as the director of alumni programs. And, like many teams, they were short-staffed, so they really relied on interns to help them out a lot. He gave me a lot of good responsibility. I remember one of my responsibilities was doing the weekly minor league report and sending that out to media every Friday. And it was, I thought, a pretty big deal. And it was a pretty big deal for me to be able to take that on and that writing responsibility. So at any rate, I worked for the Orioles as a PR intern, didn't get paid a cent. And that came to an end. And if they had paid me a cent, I probably would have still been there now. But it was time to move on, and I graduated college, and I ended up working for a few months at a very small boutique PR agency in Baltimore. But my desire was really to be in sports. And so I went to the baseball winter meetings, and that's where there's a huge job fair, which I'm sure many folks who follow you, Rob, are probably aware of. It was a big job fair there where there's mostly minor league baseball jobs. And the year that I went, it was in Dallas. And I interviewed for a job with the Frederick Keys, which was a single-A affiliate of the Orioles. And my boss, Bill Stetka, was at those winter meetings, and he was able to give me a good reference to the folks who were interviewing me. And I got the job offer right on the spot, which was incredible. Nice. So I started working for the Frederick Keys, who I was just happy because they were an Orioles affiliate. I'm back in baseball, but they were owned by Comcast Spectacor, the sports division of Comcast Corporation, headquartered out of Philadelphia. And I was very fortunate to not just be working for one person who happened to be an owner of a minor league baseball team, but a conglomerate, a company. So I worked for the Frederick Keys for 3.5 years, the first 2 years in PR, the second year and a half, or the final year and a half in marketing. And in minor league baseball, you do everything. I was the bat boy coordinator. We were pulling the tarp. You wear many, many hats. And that was a great place to start my career. It's a lot of work. I don't know that I've worked as many hours that I did on a weekly basis there. I know that I haven't since that time. So I did 3.5 years in Frederick, and then I was moved by Comcast Spectacor to the Wells Fargo Center. And I worked out of a department there that did the marketing for all the other events that came in there, aside from the 76ers and aside from the Flyers. So I would work on shows like Monster Jam and Sesame Street Live and the Circus and Disney on Ice and the various concerts. And the goal, I was there for 2 years in Philadelphia, was then to put me out to a building, to have me go be promoted to a building where I could kind of run the show. They had what was called at the time Global Spectrum. It's now called Spectra, where they manage venues throughout the world. And I was placed at a building at Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia. I worked there for 2 years as the director of marketing. My final year there, I actually oversaw marketing directors at other venues in the South, including, University of Miami and University of South Carolina. So I spent my 20s with Comcast Spectacor, 7.5 years, Frederick Keys, Wells Fargo Center, and in Norfolk, Virginia at Old Dominion University with Comcast Spectacor. And then I moved on to the Harlem Globetrotters, where I worked there for 4.5 years, and I was responsible for large market dates for the most part, and selling and putting together a marketing and advertising plan geared at selling tickets to those games for the Globetrotters North American Tour. And I worked out of a rented office space in Baltimore, so I was back home in Baltimore. And then I was approached after 4.5 years by Turnkey Sports and Entertainment about the New York Mets job, and clearly I was very interested in that. It was a great opportunity to come back to Major League Baseball after, having interned in MLB at an MLB team years ago. So I was very fortunate to get to join with the Mets a little over 5 years now. And I oversee our marketing, our social media, and our creative services divisions at the New York Mets.
So a long way from the Frederick Keys bat boy coordinator job. So that's pretty impressive, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, but you know what? I look back at those years, and I remember I was invited to one of my bat boys' bar mitzvahs. It was a lot of fun, and I rode the bus for a little bit on some of the trips, and I look back at those as a great way to spend an early part of my career and a great entry point into the sports industry. I definitely have a special place in my heart for minor league baseball and those who go down that path. And you work so hard in minor league ball, and you leave your ego at the door, that's for sure. It really taught me a lot of great things that I carry with me till today.
I'm going to bounce around a little bit here, but I want to.
Sure.
This is hot on my mind because you mentioned that part of your job, and a big part of your job, I'm sure, is the digital marketing side of it, and social media management, and all of that, those pieces of it. And we could definitely talk a lot about that because it's so important. But I listened to this podcast, and it was recently, and it was talking about the challenges with Major League Baseball players and them being engaged in their own social media. And I want you to talk about this a little bit, what you experienced with the Mets. And it was a conversation about how do we get more Major League Baseball players and NHL players to be more engaged, not like NBA and the NFL where the engagement is like 75%. In baseball and hockey, it's about 2 to 3%. And I don't know your statistics, but in general, that's where the conversation was going. But the issue behind it was because these guys that come through Major League Baseball and the NHL, they're so humbled because they've been beaten down in the minor leagues, and they to spend that time on them and to highlight themselves, a lot of them struggle with that part of it, with really being sharing a little bit more of their life because of just their humbling DNA. Do you find that, and is that accurate? And do you find that with the Mets players?
That is accurate. And I will say, even from a personal note, and I obviously am very involved in our social media feeds and our creative development there. I'm pretty humble myself. I don't really like posting a lot about myself.
Right.
on places, on my own Twitter account, on LinkedIn, on my Facebook. Like I know that I could personally market myself better on those channels, and I choose not to. So I can certainly relate to that, and I can also relate to, there's unfortunately in social media there are negative aspects of it, and it would affect my mojo in a way where I wouldn't want to hear the haters. I wouldn't want to be. I'd want to tune out the haters, and I guess by tuning that out, that would be not subscribing to that. And I see a lot of that in Major League Baseball with our players and just in the league in general. I think how you described it is that you have a lot of players who are a little bit are hesitant to post as much as they do. I mean, we have a gentleman on our team, a guy on our team, Noah Syndergaard, who I think does a very good job of controlling his content. It's pretty non-controversial. We saw that Noah a few years ago when he was kind of filling out a form that we give to our players in spring training just to learn more about them, that he had this phobia with mascots. And that's really how the whole thing between him and Mr. Met came to be. And it's something that really took off, and now you see some of our corporate partners like Citi take advantage of that in their own creative, and Noah is a partner of Citi's as well. And that sort of thing has taken off, and that's something that we'd like to highlight as the positive way to use for a player to engage with fans in social. And Noah does it in a very non-controversial way. His team of people, his marketing team of people, help him, assist him with that as well, which is something that, certainly I think is recommended for any athlete, is to have a team of people who can assist with that. So that's, for us, we don't push it to a great degree. I mean, my job in particular is to really develop our own channels. And, we look at it like there's a lot of people who grew up on WWOR, which was a superstation, just like the Braves at TBS was a superstation. And I grew up in Maryland, and not only was I watching Orioles games, but I could watch Atlanta Braves games because they were a superstation. The same was to be told for the Mets. Well, we're that station now. Like, we control the channel. And my line is that we want to have a lot of content, and we want to have some commercials, just like any television network has. A lot of content, some commercials. And that's how we really try and program our social feeds. We want to provide that content for our fans to engage in, but we also want to provide some of that commercial messaging as well that helps us drive revenue. And for us, that's selling tickets. So that's a little different than the NBA, where it's not necessarily league run. You have Major League Baseball Advanced Media, and now it's really just Major League Baseball as one baseball. They're the ones really selling our content. For us, we are able to commercialize a little bit more because we as a team aren't necessarily able to monetize our social feeds with sponsors like they are in other leagues.
Gotcha. No, well, how about with the players? And what are you guys allowed to do with player content off the field? And is that something that you use?
I think that for us, we try and utilize our players. I mean, particularly in spring training, which is an easier, more relaxed atmosphere for everybody in the front office, all of our players and our coaching staff, is we'll kind of go with them and follow them around a little bit. And it's not hard. I mean, we have an easier job than, let's say, a Coca-Cola or a Citi has in terms of developing our own content. I mean, all we have to do is go downstairs from our offices and follow the players as they park their car and they walk into the clubhouse and they stretch on the field. They get dressed, they stretch on the field, and then it's game time. We have it far easier, I think, than some of our other brands have it. because our fans they desire, they're sweating for as much behind the scenes content as we can provide them.
When you're hiring in your department, how much are you looking for, kids coming out of school or young professionals that have been in the industry for a while? What level of competency and skill sets are you looking for from, with digital marketing, social media, SEO, analytics?
Well, I think it depends on what level we're hiring for. But even at the entry level, you have to have digital competency. You have to. I mean, now on, somebody who's graduating from school, whether that be college or a master's program, we have to see activity on their social feeds. So here I am telling you that I'm humble in a way about making my own social feeds about myself.
Right. Yeah.
Promote and kind of self-promoting. I'm not really interested in that. Right. But we are interested in seeing folks who have digital competency, regardless of whether or not they're a graphic designer or they're a marketing assistant or they're in our social media department. Everybody has to have an understanding of what content development is and what resonates well online and digitally both through a desktop or through a mobile device.
I said this to a class recently. I was doing a Skype to a school out in California, and they asked me a similar question. And I said, listen, I would never hire anybody if they had a locked Instagram account. And that's not necessarily true, but I want to see the reaction. And they were like, oh, my gosh, why? I said, well, what are you hiding? And and I said, and if I see that I'm a 50-year-old man, I said, if I see that I have more followers than you do and you're 19, that's a problem, and
sure.
And they just said, well, that's kind of interesting. I said, but I want to see if you know how to really build an audience. Do you know how to build a digital audience? Not everybody's great at it. Not everybody's, because I think that same people that are very social in real life are very, very much a natural fit in digital media. It's just a natural extension of their social kind of DNA. And another thing I want to ask you this from your perspective, when you look at a candidate and if you match two candidates up together, you like both of them, you guys really like these two kids or these two young professionals, and one of them has multiple skills in graphic design, they could do short form editing, and they're pretty good at, copy, they showed you. And you had another one that maybe came from a better school, has a little bit of better pedigree, but maybe doesn't have, that necessarily skill set, but boy, impressive, smart. Which one do you personally lean towards?
Well, and this is a personal decision. I would personally lean for the first candidate that you mentioned. I think that somebody who can go out and cut content and develop content is somebody who we're very interested in. That's a skill set that to have. Certainly, it can be taught, but to have that right off the bat, that would be where I would lean. With any job hire comes attitude and effort, but I think more and more what you're seeing right now is having that digital presence, having that social presence, is something that we as hiring managers are all looking at. We're going right onto your LinkedIn page. We're trying to find you on Facebook and Instagram so we can get to know you better. And just as you mentioned, Rob, seeing somebody who has produced digital content, who has a good following, who has a smart way of posting content, that would be appealing to us. That would be appealing to me, certainly, more so than how they came about from an education standpoint. I mean, for us, it's about experience more so than education. And I also think that in the sports field, we have to see those intangibles of we work a lot of hours together, so we want to be able to get along. I mean, it's a culture fit is a big part of the hiring process at every level right now, from the C-suite all the way down. Is that I think hiring managers in the sports industry want to see folks that would be a good culture fit. They want to have diversity on their team. They want to be able to get along with the people that they're going to be spending so many hours with. And that separates people who sometimes people who, I'm somebody who's only worked in the sports industry for the most part. I've worked in the sports and entertainment industry. I would say that most of my career was I was an entertainment marketer. However, it requires a lot of hours, and it requires you to live this kind of as a lifestyle more so than a job. I mean, this isn't just a job. This really, it kind of takes over your life, and you're ingrained in it. You're thinking of things all the time. Your brand, especially in baseball, you're on all the time. I mean, it is a brand that lives well beyond the 162 games. So you need to find people who are ready to be ingrained in that. And I can tell you, I'm not somebody who's actually, we have a great senior director of social media and a great social media assistant, where this really is a 24/7 job. Mm-hmm. Running our accounts and being on all the time is so tough. I mean, especially, there could be something in pop culture tonight that gets mentioned. The New York Mets get mentioned in American Idol, let's say. Well, we've got to be able to react to that. We want to be able to react to that right away. So, these guys live and breathe social media and the New York Mets, and that's a 24/7 kind of job.
So talk about your setup a little bit. I know that there's a lot of places that even when we had North American, I'd have a kind of a proactive digital media team and a reactive digital media team. What do you guys use for software? Are you sitting on? Do you have employees sitting there watching just Hootsuite, watching what's happening there? Or
yep.
Okay. So it's
exactly Hootsuite, Twitter Deck. Our guys are constantly monitoring, and we've looked at social media listening devices. We found them to be a little bit on the expensive side, and for the most part, we're able to really bubble up. I mean, I would recommend those types of listening devices for a brand outside of the sports industry more so than in a team. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'll give you a piece of content that, a couple pieces of content that turned out to be big winners for us are just authentic fan-generated content. So a couple years ago, we had a fan, tag us at Mets and show that his son, who was a 5-year-old kid in North Carolina, was Mini Thor, and he really looked like Noah Syndergaard with the hair, and he was pitching on the street, and he was a really good pitcher, and that generated millions of views, and we had him out to the ballpark and throws out the first pitch, and it was a great piece of content. And then more recently, this past off season, we had a fan tweet us and say, ask us how many retweets to have prom pictures at Citi Field.
Oh, wow.
Probably not expecting that we would respond, and we responded 500,000 retweets, and she got them, and she got celebrities. And she got celebrities to retweet, and actually in May she'll be coming out for one of our games in her prom dress to take her prom pictures.
Awesome.
So that's stuff that we didn't even plan for. That's user-generated content that just shows that we're listening to our fans, we're engaging with our fans, we're having a one-on-one conversation with our fans. That's the best stuff, man. It really is the best. That's the best content that you can have is when your fans are directing your content kind of for you, when they're providing content for you.
So, Mark, how do you schedule your staff? Do you have to schedule them in different shifts to do the listening? So, I mean, is it a 24-hour thing that someone's assigned to watch what people are saying and doing?
Great question. I mean, it really relies on two people, which is our senior director of social media, Will Carafello, and our marketing assistant, Tim Walsh. Certainly we assign games. So right now we have a game scheduled for tonight. We have somebody who's responsible for live tweeting. We have a road game tonight. I know people are listening to this
Yeah.
at all different times. There's a road game going on right now. We have one person assigned to that. When we have a home game, we have a team of people, because I like to say that that's prime. You know how TV has their prime? Our prime, where we have the most people kind of watching us and engaging with us through our social channels, is when a game is going on. Mm-hmm. So we want to have, especially when at home, we want to have as many eyes on the ground, as many phones on the ground, grabbing content as possible. And then beyond that, in off hours, you have both members of our social media department kind of switching off. I don't know that it's anything really formal. You have both of them on pretty much all the time. Somebody will take a weekend off here and there where they don't necessarily have to be on, getting content planned out and produced ahead of time when we can, and obviously watching as things kind of come in and bubble up. But, it goes beyond our social media team. It probably extends to our full marketing and communications group to fully monitor things that kind of come up. It goes beyond just two people in social media.
How many people are in the marketing department?
Well, in my world, in terms of where I oversee marketing, social media, and creative services, we have 9 full-time people plus 4 year-long associates. In the marketing and communications department, which I report into, it's a group of 35 folks.
Does your group also do all the activation during the games?
No, that is in our corporate partnerships team.
Gotcha.
They handle our activation with corporate partners.
So what are you seeing now out there? When you have, I'm sure, thousands of resumes come in, and when you guys are starting to hire for the season and then seasonal jobs, where are you seeing, and what differences are you seeing that really stand out with kids? Do you have, or with students, I should say, do you have anybody sending you videos now, or just kind of sitting in front of a camera? Because I know that's getting popular. A video resume.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is that we actually require that.
Okay.
We'll collect resumes for a specific position. For instance, we have a graphic designer associate position that's currently open, and we'll collect resumes and really portfolios in that world, and then go through the portfolios. And I think we rounded it down to 20 people that we really liked, and we'll send them what's called a hire view, which is that interview in front of the camera, which is awkward. There's no doubt. It's difficult, and it can be awkward. But we want to get a sense of the person's personality. Again, I go back to culture is a really big thing, and we want, as a company, a diverse group of people that come at it in different ways, that have had diverse backgrounds, that have grown up in different areas and different places. But also people that, our CRO quotes the book, The No Asshole Rule.
Right.
We want people who are good people and genuinely good people, that are people who can work on a team, get along with each other, and work together on a common goal. And that, for us, is providing, a world-class experience at our ballpark, which is hopefully a full ballpark. And that's where marketing is very involved, is making sure that ballpark is full.
Well, Mark, I tell you, I don't think you guys are having any problem filling seats this year. And, it's certainly been a pleasure. You've come, like I said, you've come a long way from coordinating the Bat Boys down in Maryland and to where you are now. And I'm just so glad that you took the time to talk to me and, hopefully inspire some of my listeners about it, that it could be done. And if you put enough effort into it and network and say yes sometimes when you're not getting paid, if you really want to be in the industry. So I know our paths will cross sometime, but, I want to thank you again for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Rob.
Oh, fantastic. This is Rob Thompson with Sports Dream Job Show. Mark Fine, Executive Director of Marketing for the New York Mets. Mark, thank you so much. Keep your eyes on the road and your hands on the wheel out there, the LIE.
You got it. You have to do that. That's for sure.
All right, brother. Good luck this year.
All right, Rob. All the best. Great talking to you.
Same.
All right,
Bye-bye.
take care.